If you're signing up for your first fringe, here at MedFringe, we understand the dilemmas you're going through, all the big questions bouncing around in your head, and we really are here to help. Now, when I say we, I'm talking about myself and Ron, the man behind MedFringe. Ron, this really is your baby, I think it's safe to say. If it hadn't been for you working on Brighton Fringe and the biggest fringe in the world, Edinburgh Fringe, would we be here talking MedFringe in Kent?
It was an idea that I shared a few months ago, and here we are.
Well, this episode is focusing on what acts need to do to get themselves fringe ready. What does that look like to you?
There are three parts to it, really. First of all is about your show. You've got to know that your show is in the position you want it to be for MedFringe. So knowing what you're coming for will tell you how you need to prepare your show. Are you expecting to deliver something really polished, or are you coming to do something that's a work in progress? Either way, you need to know that your show is where you want it to be. Then it's about understanding your venue and where you're coming into. So what's the technical spec of the venue you're arriving at? Are they going to have the microphone that you need, or do you need to be bringing your own and your own PA? So having those conversations with your venue to make sure there are no surprises for you, that's really important. And last is about people management and managing yourself, making sure that, do you need to bring an extra person with you to carry stuff or be your lighting operator?
It's the things you need to get right and all the little bits that might go wrong. You might not anticipate it, but looking down the line, is it the lighting you need, or, as you say, Ron, having that extra pair of hands?
And hey, MedFringe, it's its first year. There's going to be hiccups along the way where there's some things that we may not foresee, or there are things that we'll plan for but still manage to bite us in the bottom. But knowing your show, part of that is that you need to prepare for your get-in, you need to prepare for delivery of the show, and for your get-out. So with a lot of venues, there'll be a very fast turnaround between when your show or the previous show finishes and when your show starts. So you need to know that you can get in there, you can get show ready and audience ready within the time space that you have. Deliver your show to the best of your ability and not stressed out because something got forgotten or you didn't realize this about this venue you're in. And then once the show's finished, you need to be able to wrap up and get yourself out there quick, sharp before the next show starts, not long after you.
What are the things that acts can do right now to get ahead of the game a little bit while they've still got 4 weeks to go?
I like lists myself. For me, it's making that list of understanding what the performance day looks like. I'll have to arrive at the car park to start with. Then I've got to unload the car. I've got to get into the venue. I've got to set these things up. So knowing exactly what that plan is, knowing it, writing it down means that you don't have to remember anymore. You just tick the box. Done that, done that, done that. And I like to, for want of a better word, choreograph a get-in. So know exactly where I go, do things in the same order, pack the box the same way every time, so that when it comes to setting up, it's no surprises. And that's something you can practice before you even arrive at the Fringe, because you've got all your stuff already. It's just about turning up in the right place at the right time and doing what you already know. That sort of brings us on to the next bit of the tech spec, because knowing what your venue has to offer changes what you're going to prepare. We all have expectations. We all book our venue thinking that the person we're speaking to knows everything that we know. And of course, it's simply not the case. So through the years, I've seen many, many acts turn up, one, over-prepared, which is fantastic, but quite often those that turn up with a lot of preparation behind them, when they realize that actually something slightly different from how they rehearsed it, it can be quite confusing for them. So we have to have that flexible outlook as well. But then I've seen the other end of the spectrum where somebody turns up just themselves, expecting everything to be done for them, expecting everything to be there that they had go, with a flexible mind and enough foresight to know that that might be the case. Those things can work, but we've got to be ready. We've got to come at it with an attitude of prepare for what we don't know, and and prepare as much as we can with the information we can gather, and gather as much early as possible.
It sounds like that flexibility that you mentioned is key.
By knowing what you've got to do and knowing what the choreographed part is, means that if you're a one-person band, you've then got the freedom of thought. You're not task saturated, because that's practiced, and you can go, okay, there's something I want to add here. There's something I want to change. That was something we didn't expect. So managing yourself and managing the team that you have around you, whether your venue might provide a technician. If they don't, knowing actually, I do need to take my friend with me because they need to move that fader up and down when we've rehearsed, as opposed to just what some random person on the street would or wouldn't know. Then within that people management, it's about knowing, when are you going to have the opportunity to continue to talk about your show, to get everybody in to see your work, so that your work can succeed with those bums on seats, as well as its trial run for whatever its next stage of existence might be. So are you going to want to go and see 3 shows on the day of your event so that you can talk to other people at those shows, encourage those audiences to come over to your show? Are you going to want to see a show the day before? Are you going to want to go and see a show in your venue 2 days before so that you can scope out that tech? And then when you see the technician from that show walking around, go, oh, by the way, I might need a technician at my show. Or just ask those questions. Is that microphone part of this setup, or did you bring it with you? Finding those conversations is a lot easier when you're actually out there doing it than it is sat back and concerning over it. There are some shows like Macbeth and Kit the Musical that have got a lot of rehearsal going into them because they're larger casts, whereas we've got some other shows where it's one person stand-up comedy gigs where people practice in their shed, or somewhere where people aren't going to hear them. Yourself and your show is definitely now. Leaving it until a week before, 2 days before, you're already out of that window of being able to develop and ensure that you are ready.
What fringe crimes have you seen at the bigger festivals that you've already worked on yourself? You bring immense experience to your role at MedFringe. So you've probably seen some people, sadly, get it wrong.
Sure, yeah. The biggest is the diva attitude. If you turn up expecting to have an audience because you are you and you chose this venue and you'll have an audience just because, everybody who comes with that attitude falls on their face. It's often those same people with those same attitudes that have certain expectations that they haven't shared. They've kept those expectations to themselves. They've turned up, they've not asked questions. They look around and they go, where's my X, Y, and Z? Do you mean those things you didn't ask us for? So that is really terrible. And then treating your venue staff and your venue technicians with respect is one of those things that's so important. We as venue managers, as technicians, are day in, day out working with lots of different people and ensuring that that space continues to run safely and theatrically, as creatively. Quite often that means staying late at night, arriving early, and doing things in our lunch breaks just to make sure that everything is just so. So if you turn up with that diva attitude and you're a diva to your technician or your venue manager, it's going to be very easy for them to decide that they're not going to spend their free time on your show. So look after your venue people. Bring them a cup of coffee when you arrive. It makes an immense difference and gets other people invested in your project. And if they're invested in your project, they're talking about your project. And it's those people that are working at those venues that know the people who are coming through the door and what weight they hold in local industry. So if you've been a diva to somebody and then the next day in comes somebody who's well known for booking people in bigger venues, they're not going to be talking about your show. They're going to be talking about the little show that was on after yours that was incredibly humble, didn't have much of an audience, were lovely, and were equally as good. So by building those good, healthy relationships with the people you're working with will fare you in good stead, even if you don't see it directly.
As someone said to me once, it's nice to be important, but more important to be nice.
That's it, yeah. And also, I may have said this in the previous podcast, but choose to do that thing that successful you does. Not the diva part, obviously, but if you want to make it in certain circles, try and get yourself introduced into those circles. We'll talk about more of that on the next episode. But yes, certainly being nice to the people who are supporting your show and event makes it that they're going to be spreading the word about you and how you behave and ultimately how you perform with people that will be supporting you without you knowing it.
Which segues rather nicely, actually, into the MedFringe rules, because we do want everyone to have a really positive experience of being part of MedFringe.
Definitely. We're a festival that is uncurated. So if you came to us with any new idea of a show, we are not going to say no unless you're planning to do something illegal. We're not going to say no to you being part of our festival. And that comes with challenges for us as a festival. There may be some things on that are not my cup of tea and not most people's cup of tea, but provided you're coming with the right ethics and you're ready to move through the process, then we absolutely want to diversify.
I know you're looking as well as within Kent and within Medway, a little bit further afield. What sort of audiences are you expecting, particularly those acts who've come from a long distance, who may struggle a bit more with promoting locally on the spot?
Yes, so we have a fantastic local cultural environment in Medway. It's very healthy. There are lots of people that go out and see lots of things. We've also got massive regeneration in the area. Right now in Chatham alone, there are more than 1,000 homes being built, meaning that there are lots of people that are new in the area. We want to make sure that they know this is going on. We want to make sure that they know there is something for them. We are having reviewers. So we've got Fringe Review. We're talking with them literally this week about what they're going to come and see and what they're going to review. So that's one of those ways that we're drawing audiences from other areas because they're seeing that accolade and they're seeing things coming out of MedFringe. Theatre Unfiltered is another reviewing organisation that are going to be coming down to MedFringe and making sure that they see as much as they can. Ultimately, we want as many people at our festival as we can outreach to.
So we know at MedFringe, it's our first year, the first year this festival has been held, which means we are going to have a lot of newbies, a lot of first-time performers at MedFringe, which is brilliant. We're really looking forward to. Most important for those acts in particular, I think. Ron, what does it mean when you say they must be show ready?
So if you're a comedian coming to MedFringe and it's your first time performing at a fringe or even your first time in front of an audience, writing your jokes that day is not the direction you want to be going. You need to have rehearsed. You need to be clear on where your path is going. If you're a comedian that's in that position where you're thinking there's 4 weeks to go, not ready to write and be in that position for MedFringe, let's talk about MedFringe 2027. But if you've got something where the polish is there, the beats are learned, then let's get you in. We've got plenty of spaces and we can find you somewhere. And if you're a show that is, for example, a band, by all means play the new stuff. But if you've not played it in front of people before or you've not learned the chords yet, on stage at the Fringe is not the place for that. This is where we're going to have people reviewing. It's where we're going to have audiences that expect a certain level of quality. So there's a big difference, and I had this conversation with somebody recently. There's a big difference between amateur performance and fringe performance. Amateur is people who go out and perform for fun. They may have done it for a very long time, but it's a bit of fun. It's what they do for fun. Fringe actually is people on the cusp of professionalism. It's people who quite often are professional performers that are trialing new things to get their work to a professional level. And it's not people who just do this for fun. It's people who do this for their jobs, for their careers, for professional development. And that's why so much comes out of fringe theatre and fringe festivals, because it is those people that are on the brink of something much bigger.
And I think you said in episode 1 or 2, you're completely prepared for people to maybe want to come to the Fringe and come to this year's festival to see what's happening, to look at other acts, so that they know what they're doing when they come back in 2027.
Any uncertainty about the Fringe, there's always the opportunity to visit now, understand a bit more about it now, and prepare for the next one. This is a festival that is not going away. The more, the closer we get to the first Med Fringe, the more and more I see that this is needed, this is wanted. We are going to be here for years to come.
Well, we've talked a lot about what can go wrong at the festival and how we'll be need to prepare for that and not let it happen at Med Fringe this year. What are the stories of those successes that you've seen where you've stood back and gone, wow?
One of the best get-ins for a Fringe show that I witnessed was a musical, and obviously they need to do a vocal warm-up. They'd travelled through Edinburgh in the cold and the rain, but their vocal warm-up was actually choreographed to how they set their stage. So every day they did exactly the same vocal warm-up. It was timed and everything, and as they did it, each piece of set was put in position like a dance. But it meant that every time their setup was exactly the same. Their voices were warm, and they were ready to begin their performance, because that is their warm-up section. So if you can find a way of doing your setup in a way that prepares your performance as opposed to being something separate from it, then crack on with that. It's an excellent skill, maybe not a skill, an excellent practice for being show ready on the day, because the warm-ups are there.
That's a great Fringe hack. I love that.